But they kill this demon, and unfortunately, because they kill this demon, and because of what happened in the Superstition Mountains at the end of Hounded, Atticus has now drawn the attention of an organization known as the Hammers of God, who don't realize what's going on because they haven't been involved in the events hitherto, but they think that they've got a magic user on their hands who's consorting with demons, and they are not having any part of that shit. And so they're starting to make his life a little bit of hell. Actually, a lot of bit of hell. And he's outsmarting them every other step of the way, and then they outsmart him, and then one thing leads to another, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So that's the deal with the demons. Is he's got to do a little bit of cleanup with the help of Coyote. Be weird, hilarious, but still help of Coyote. Thrice cursed trickster gods. I'm just saying. But finally, and like I said, most importantly, the fallout from the end of Hounded is now there's a power vacuum in this area of Arizona. And what does that mean? Well, if you'll recall, there is a coven of Polish witches that inhabit the area, and they maintain peace and economic prosperity. And it's hard to tell whether they do it because they genuinely want to do good things, or if they do it because they want to take advantage of that prosperity. Well, in Hounded, they have a full coven of 13 witches, because, 13. But because 6 of those witches decided to ally themselves with Angus Og, all 6 of them are now dead, and the rest of them have started a new coven. Even though it's not really new, it's still the same coven, but not allied with a crazy fucking love god. Because love makes you crazy, right? Excuse me. But so you've got these 7 witches, and that diminishes the power of their coven. So because there's that diminishment in their power, another coven of witches from Germany, whose name I will not even attempt to pronounce, but it's like the Sisters of the Third House. I think of them as the Nazi German witches, because later on we find out, through the narrative, that these witches were partly to blame. Of course, this is an alternate world, similar to the one that we live in, obviously. This is urban fantasy. But these German witches had a lot to do with World War II and Nazi Germany. How much of their agenda was legitimately anti-Semitic is up for speculation, but there you are. So you've got these Nazi witches that have come in, and at the very beginning of the novel, they execute a spell, a hex, hence the title. They execute a hex which kills one of the Polish witches only because she wasn't in her condo at the time, because all these witches live in the same building of condos, like they own an entire floor of condos. And and one of them was out and about running errands or something, and she essentially spontaneously combusted because of this hex. But this was a hex that was targeted simultaneously on all 7 witches and Atticus. And so because it targeted Atticus, he's sort of like, alright, eye for an eye, bitches. And so now he's been roped into this thing, because in his mind, Atticus is a protector of Gaia, i.e. the Earth. That's his job. His job is not to protect the people on the Earth. His job is to protect the earth and the animals and the plants and shit. That's his job. People are going to do what people are going to do. He has had 21 centuries of experience watching and dealing with human beings. He is not too concerned about the vast majority of them. He has his people that he cares about, but human beings, they're going to do what they're going to do. And that's his general attitude, but because he got targeted in this hex, now he's got to deal with that. Well, let's put a pin in that for a minute. On top of these German witches coming in and trying to take over and ruin this area and make it madness, now we've also got a herd, I don't know what you would call it, but you got a bunch of Bacchants. What are Bacchants? I will get into that. But you got a bunch of Bacchants coming in from Las Vegas. Bacchants are sort of like minions, I guess you could say, of the Roman god Bacchus, who is associated with wine and partying and insanity and all that fun but somewhat terrifying stuff. So now Melina, the leader of the Polish coven, has roped Atticus into dispatching these Bacchants coming down from Las Vegas by saying, look, if we let them come in, they're going to cause chaos. They're going to, there's going to be lots of STDs going around, and the economy is going to fail, and it's going to cause divorces and chaos, and we don't want that. And Atticus is going, I don't give a fuck. She says, you got to do it, because eventually they're going to come after you, and your magic is no use against them. So he goes, fuck. Because, the Polish coven cannot leave their building now, because that's the only place that they're protected against the German witches. So they're sort of like having to stay indoors and sequestered in their condo building for the time being. So, in order to get rid of these Bacchants, Atticus has to enlist the help of Laksha. Now, if you will recall from Hounded, Laksha is an Indian witch who used to share a brain with, or I should say a body, with Granuaile, who is now Atticus's druidic apprentice. Okay? Since the end of Hounded, in the 3 weeks, like I said, there's 3 weeks between the end of Hounded and the beginning of Hexed. In those 3 weeks, Granuaile takes herself, and consequently Laksha, out to North Carolina, where they go into a hospital. They find somebody who's in a coma. Laksha inhabits that body, essentially asks permission of the spirit of the person within that body, I guess you could say. Hey, can I hang out in here? I mean, do you want to live? Because I can help you, repair whatever damage has been done to your brain or your body, whatever put you in the coma, I can help you repair that magically, and then I'll leave. But the body she ends up possessing, the spirit of the person, the woman, says, yeah, no, I'm done. I don't have the body, have at these. So Laksha is now living in North Carolina, and Atticus has to ask her to help him dispatch the Bacchants. His first choice of dealing with them is to ask help from the Tempe werewolf pack, headed up by Gunnar Magnusson. So he calls Gunnar, and Gunnar goes, no, we are not Lassie, okay? You can't just whistle and we'll come running. And the reason, I probably should explain, the reason why it is probably best that these Bacchants get dispatched, killed by werewolves over almost anything else, is because werewolves are only immune, or, yeah. The only thing that can kill a werewolf, immune probably was the right word, but whatever. Werewolves can only be killed by silver, period, end of story. Magic doesn't touch them, nothing. So they're just basically indestructible. But Gunnar Magnusson says, nope, we're not doing this. We're staying out of all this shit. Our priority is to do all the busy work, bureaucratic nonsense for our magical clients, you know, like Atticus and like the Polish witches, and to take care of our own. Everything else, we're staying out. So total neutrality. So Atticus goes, well, fuck a duck. And he calls up Laksha. Atticus, I think I mentioned this in the last show, Atticus is not too keen on witches in general, but he really doesn't, like, he's really wary of Laksha, because she can transfer her consciousness from body to body and basically shut down minds if she wants to. So anyway, so he calls her up and he's like, hey, I need your help. We've got some Bacchants. I can't do anything about it because they can't be killed with my magic. They can't be killed with my sword. And I am susceptible to their insanity. So I am susceptible to Bacchanalia. My iron aura amulet thing will not protect me against Bacchanalia. So Laksha says, okay, I will come see you, and I will dispatch them, but I have a price. I'll tell you what it is later. Turns out her price is she wants Atticus to steal the golden apples of Idun. What? What the hell is that, Becca? Idun is a Norse goddess who has these golden apples that keep the Norse pantheon young and healthy and strong. And so if Laksha can get her hands on these apples, she will be able to keep this new body of hers young and healthy and strong and essentially live forever. So they're like immortal apples. And she wants him to steal them all because, as I mentioned before, Atticus can shift planes. So he can go to Asgard. She can't. He can. So she wants him to go steal these apples as payment for her dispatching these Bacchants. Now, Atticus doesn't really want to do that, and he manages to say, alright, fine, I will steal one apple. One. And then you can take the seeds from that apple and plant your own damn tree here on Midgard, which is what the Norse call Earth. And she goes, alright, fine. So I will kill 12 Bacchants in exchange for one apple of Idun. And he goes, alrighty then. Problem is, there are 15 Bacchants that come down from Vegas. And he didn't know that. So Laksha kills 12 of them, and he still has to kill the other 3, which creates a whole crazy mess in Scottsdale, which is not quite as paramount to the story. Basically, all you need to know about that is it makes a certain detective with the Tempe police highly distrust him and start coming up with some really crazy conspiracy theories revolving around Atticus O'Sullivan, the owner of Third Eye Books in Tempe. So that's the story with the Bacchants. The only other side note I need to make about this, or the only point that I need to make about the Bacchants and this whole situation with the Saturn Massacre, as they call it, is that because Atticus pulled these shenanigans and actually made the mistake of not killing one of the Bacchants gets away. Atticus pisses off the Roman god Bacchus. And that is going to be very important later on, so keep that in mind.